Okay.
Great. It is 4:03. We are calling this meeting to order. I will first ask the general manager if there are any housekeeping items before we jump into the agenda.
Yes, thank you, President Akbari. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good afternoon. On behalf of the ACWD Board of Directors, I would like to welcome the public's participation in this special board meeting this evening. My name is Robert Shaver. I serve as the district's general manager, and members of the public may participate either by using the Zoom application or by telephone. And today, this workshop will focus primarily on providing an update on the district's advanced metering infrastructure project, but there will also be an action item proposed related to the district's Alvarado Niles Pipeline seismic improvement project. There will be pauses at the appropriate times for members of the public to ask questions or to engage with the board. If you're participating by Zoom, generally we ask that all participants mute their microphones unless speaking. You may also be placed on mute by the district secretary. The district secretary will unmute participants at the appropriate times when the board is receiving comments. In Zoom, you'll be able to follow along with the presentation materials as they are presented to the board. And at any time, you may submit a question or raise your hand in the Zoom app and you would like to address the board, and you will be given an opportunity to do so again at the appropriate time. If you're participating by telephone audio, again, we ask you to put your phone on mute to assure the best sound quality for everyone. And you may download the presentation slides from the district's website at www.acwd.org. The district does record its Zoom board meetings, and they are made available to the public for future viewing. Lastly, there is a closed session item that will occur near the end of this meeting. Members of the public may stay logged into Zoom or on their phone to be notified of any board reports or actions when the board reconvenes in open session. Again, thank you for attending.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. Mr. Warren, would you mind taking roll call, please?
Of course. Directors Weed.
Here.
Gunther.
Here.
Huang.
Here.
Sethi.
Present.
And Akbari.
Here. And because this is probably the last time I get to do this, I'm going to ask our general manager, Mr. Shaver, to lead us in the salute to the flag, please.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. Moving on to item number 3, public comments on matters on this notice of special meeting. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment at this time? Mr. Ken N.
Good afternoon, board. I hope you can hear me. As this is a special board meeting with the attendant rules on public comment, I will take this opportunity to comment on agenda item number 8. The stated reason for yet another closed session regarding N3 Cattle Company is to discuss, quote, price and terms of payment, unquote. The listing agent for the N3 property has indicated that a sale is pending. If the district is a participant in this transaction, I suppose congratulations are in order to the partnership. However, as I have opined before, I feel strongly that the district explained to the ratepayers the rationale behind involvement in this property, including a full cost-benefit analysis. So far,
I have an objection. I have an objection to the board. I have an objection to the board president right now with Mr. Ken N. You are revealing private information that's confidential. Nothing has been revealed by the broker realtor on behalf of N3 Ranch
Mr.
to the public.
Sethi,
Nothing has been released.
Sethi,
You are revealing private information through your wife on the board out to the public right now. And I resent you bringing this up. it is quite objectionable. You do not know what the broker dealer is doing with any other participant right now other than the 5 board members that represent this district.
Sir,
So quit it.
Mr. Sethi and the board, I am on a publicly accessible website, CaliforniaOutdoorProperties.com. They are the listing broker for N3, Mr. Todd Renfrew. If you were to just manage to go to the website, a publicly accessible website, you will see the moniker sale pending. This is publicly
That's
available
different than what
information.
you have stated here
I said,
in public. And
sir,
you
I
are
will read to
reviewing
you.
confidential information through your wife, who is on an
President
elected member of
Akbari,
the board of
this is
directors.
Director Huang.
Quit
I
it.
object to that characterization. I said, let our member of the public speak and make his justification. I object to the implication that I release confidential information. So far, everything our public member review is available on public website or newspaper articles that can be traced. I object firmly of the characterization without proof.
I'm going to request that we let the member of the public complete his public comments, as is his right, unless legal counsel tells me otherwise.
I concur with you, President Akbari. We should hear what the member of the public has to say. He has the right. He has, I think we have limited to 5 minutes for
Correct.
public comment.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank
Mr.
you, Council. So,
comments.
yes. So as I was indicating, I suppose that congratulations are in order to the partnership. As I have opined before, I feel strongly that the district explained to the ratepayers the rationale behind involvement in this property, including a full cost-benefit analysis. So far, we've only heard about specious plans to construct an upper dam along Arroyo Valle. Now that the transaction has moved along to this point, this discussion about the cost and benefit to the district and its ratepayers needs to happen sooner rather than later, as it appears that the seller has accepted an offer. Specifically, I asked that the district prepare a presentation to the ratepayers and public describing the benefits and risks to the district and how this transaction is a cost-efficient means to meet the stated goals of the district. If, on the other hand, the district is not a participant in the aforementioned transaction, I question why the district continues to meet in closed session. I hope the district is not exposing its ratepayers to a claim of tortious interference, or more specifically, economic interference with contractual relationships. Whichever is the case, the district owes an explanation to the public as soon as possible. I find this pattern of continued discussion in secret disturbing and not aligned with the principles of transparency and open government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nishimura. The board is, of course, prevented from directly responding to any comments made under this public comments item. I will ask if the general manager of council wish to respond in any way, but otherwise the directors, I don't believe are able to respond at this point.
I think we should accept the public comment and move on.
Understood. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a comment under item number 3?
Director Akbari, President Akbari, just for the record, I would like Director Seppi to identify which specific item that he believed that I leaked privileged information that's discussed in closed session. I consider his behavior bullying and belittling without factual issues, without facts to back it up. I am very disappointed that Director Seppi could not take this out separately if he has issues. Me being on the board, yes, I am married to Mr. Ken. By being on the board, that does not mean he waives his right as a customer of this water district to provide comments, to critique our actions, including mine as a director of this board. I would ask directors refrain from making accusations. Thank you.
Thank you,
I will
Director.
leave my statements as they stand.
This is an item that is agendized. It is item 8.1. I believe further comment can be made under item 8.1 amongst the directors if they choose to. Hearing no more public comments on item 3, we'll move on to item 4, the Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project Proof of Concept Report. This workshop will focus on ongoing and planned activities related to the Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project, also known as AMI. Specifically, this workshop will focus and report on the proof of concept, also known as POC, deployment phase of the project, including the following topics: the overview of the AMI project and planned POC deployment phase, the observations and evaluation of the POC deployment, notice to proceed with full deployment phase, and the review of the project next steps. And with that, I will turn it over to our general manager.
And I will turn it over to our Manager of Engineering and Technical Services, Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver, and good evening, board and public. My remarks will be very brief, and we'll get right into sharing information about this item. Basically, this workshop has been part of the AMI, or Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project, schedule for a long time. And the purpose, of course, is to review the findings from the proof of concept phase. And staff had committed to provide this review to the board before advancing on to the full deployment phase, to review the results and review the findings from the proof of concept phase. And so, spoiler alert, the proof of concept has been very successful so far, and staff continues to prepare for the full deployment phase of the project. And now, to share additional detail and to step us through the POC and next steps is Ben Egger, who will start us off. Ben Egger is the Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project Manager. And so, Ben, I'll ask you to take it away.
There's the unmute. My bad. I lost it for a second. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Yes, my name is Ben Egger. I'm the district's project manager for the AMI project. So good afternoon, members of the public, members of the board, and staff. Over the last 6 months, the project has embarked on a proof of concept deployment. And so tonight we'll be providing a report on our findings. And as such, this presentation will focus on our deployment work. Okay, so quick overview of the presentation. I have a couple of introduction and orientation slides. Then we'll provide a report of the POC, talk a little about notice to proceed number 2 and the requirements leading into the full deployment phase, and then next steps for the project overall. AMI, as we know, involves a lot of acronyms. So a PDF is provided of the slide deck is provided on acwd.org. So feel free to pull this slide up and use this as a reference sheet, or stop me if at any point it sounds like I'm talking in code with too many acronyms. We have planned for questions at the end, but Director Akbari, do pull me up if you have questions from the members of the board along the way. Okay, so the district has partnered with consulting firm EMA to plan, analyze, design, manage this project. So co-presenting with me and really needing no introduction, I think at this point, is Mark and Joel, who we all know well. Okay, so we've touched on these items a couple of times already, but primarily this presentation is focused on the proof of concept deployment of the selected Badger Meter AMI system. So we'll review that AMI system, the POC deployment, and lessons learned along the way, review our public interactions during the POC phase, and our planned next steps. I do want to remind staff and the board that the deployment contract itself is executed in full through the end of the full deployment. But should we so choose, we built in a natural off-ramp between the proof of concept and the notice to proceed number 2. Okay, so a quick review. I have a couple of review slides here just to reorient ourselves with the AMI project and introduce anyone new to AMI. So this one is a quick little slide just to identify why AMI. So AMI is definitely an investment in our customers. It has a favorable payback period, making it a smart investment for the district, as we've discussed in prior board meetings, and provides a number of benefits for our customers, such as supporting customers' conservation goals and identifying customer leaks, in addition to supporting a number of operational efficiencies for the district. So really a win-win. Continuing on that theme of why AMI, and again, this is some material that we've reviewed together previously, but on the right-hand side of this slide is an overview of the business drivers, the business driver categories that form the foundation of our financial support for the project. And on the other side, we have some high-level project goals, of which you'll hear the AMI, the POC deployment was successful in supporting many of these. Okay, another slide that you've seen a couple of times before. I promise this is probably the last review slide. So this is the high level sort of overall schedule for the project. We've seen it a couple of times before, but purple represents the planning phase of the project, which we completed. The blue represents our procurement phase of the project that we completed and moved into the light blue phase, which is the proof of concept deployment. The green phase, which is sort of the next big phase for the project, is the full deployment phase. It's a 30-month full deployment. So other than as building this schedule with our progress to date, I just wanted to highlight the board touch points that we'd programmed into the project from the very get-go. And so we've completed a number. They're represented by the little white bubbles on the timeline. And so we're currently up to the POC evaluation touch point, which is one that we'd been looking forward to. Okay, so that's the sort of high level overview plan for the project. This is actually the project schedule that we're using on the deployment project. Of course, it's rolled up and showing just major tasks. There's dare I say thousands of subtasks not on here, but it certainly gives you a good representation of what we've completed to date and what the overall schedule looks like for deployment. A couple of items to point out here. We had the notice of award, notice to proceed number 2, just before Thanksgiving. And then here we've made a lot of progress with the POC and anticipating completing that mid-July. And then the anticipated release of notice to proceed number 2 would be in August. So drilling in on the topic, I guess we're here to talk about a little more, the POC. You can see that many of the high-level tasks we'll touch on tonight. So items such as the AMI software, which is complete, some training that is complete for district staff, Kayenta integrations, which are well on their way to completion. We've certainly completed the necessary ones to get us through POC. The public outreach plan, which is an execution of the public outreach plan, which is really an ongoing task from end to end of this project. Materials, inventory, user acceptance testing, mobilization, a number of things here we'll be talking about in more detail. Okay, So a quick catch up from, I believe, when we last spoke about the deployment project is when it was awarded. And so since then, we've completed a number of pre-POC tasks following that award. So contract execution and the notice of award, NTP number 1 was issued, and then we got stuck into to the integration and initial user acceptance testing. AMI generates a lot of data, and software integrations allow us to coordinate that data between systems of record so we can enhance and automate our processes. Some software integrations were prioritized to allow the project to remain on schedule. I think we had reported that for quite a while that there was probably some lead time concerns with Kayenta doing all those integrations in one hit. So we had to prioritize those in a way that made sense. And then we completed our initial user acceptance test, IUAT. This is the initial benchtop testing of the system prior to even the first POC deployment. We wanted to make sure it worked on the benchtop. The installation contractor established mobilized and established their operations center. It's actually here on Grimma, just a block or 2 away, where they warehouse the inventory, and that forms the basis of their operations, their day-to-day operations during their installation work. We developed the public outreach materials as we'd planned and commenced execution of our public outreach plan. Certainly more to come on that topic. And of course, we commenced our POC deployment, so more to come on that topic too. Quick summary of the contract itself. So as you may remember, there's a capital expenditure component as well as an ongoing operational component of the project. So we're really talking about the AMI deployment contract here tonight, but there is an ongoing support agreement for software as a service and network as a service. So those 2 contracts were awarded on May 21st. Change order number 1 swapped positive displacement meters for ultrasonic meters in the contract and was executed hot on the heels of the award in the amount of $3,031,208.29. Change order number 2 was a no-cost change order that really remedied a bonding issue that we had in the contract, where we were requiring the application of the wrong type of bond during the warranty period. And then change order number 3 was additionally, it was also a no-cost change order where we had a subcontractor that requested release. And so we accommodated that substitution. Change order number 4 is probably is very recent, so you may be remembering the details of that. That was awarded at the June board meeting in the order of $494,500. This is a change order that was really outside of the AMI project. It'll be accounted for under a separate job number, but really took benefit of some synergy there. We have our contractor touching every meter box, and that's what's required to do that work that's needed. So so that was a nice efficiency we were able to find there to include that work under this project. So staff have also executed a work modification order in the amount of $31,635 in addition to these 4 change orders. And that was for the addition of some odd size lids that we identified during the POC. As you can imagine, we have, there's probably more to come on this topic, but as you can imagine, we have 85 or 100 years worth of meter boxes out there. And so we did some surveying work prior to bidding, but there were some odd sized boxes, some oddball boxes we found out there that we had to find a solution for. So that work modification order should take us through to the end of 2021 for those odd lid sizes. So today we've issued payments in the order of $899,871 under the deployment contract. And so it is typical for a construction contract. There's certainly a lot more work than that has happened, but it's typical in construction that the payment lags the actual work. And so in our case, we have a pretty rigorous performance criteria that each meter has to approve, and there's a time component to that test, that performance criteria. So so yeah, there is a lag between, there is a lag between the payments and the work. And so the other cost-related item that I did want to touch on is that we do anticipate that we'll likely have to true up the exact meter population by the end of the project. So as you can imagine, our meter population has continued to grow from the time, the snapshot in time when we bid the project out. And so there are more meters installed today than there were at the time of bidding. However, while we're not planning to present an update of the business case tonight, because other than some schedule adjustments, the project is proceeding as expected. However, given the benefits of the original meter population, which is smaller than today's meter population, covered all those one-time costs, we'd expect that any additional AMI meters would only enhance our business case position, albeit incrementally. And so I just wanted to remind us that not included on this table are the other contracts we have in place to support the project, the EMA, Kayenta, and SEW contracts that are the focus of this presentation. Okay, so on to the POC report, the proof of concept report. And here's, I'll turn it over to Joel in a minute, but here's where I get to steal his thunder a little and let you know that the integrations, testing, and workflow development to support the deployment were successful. The POC meter deployment is approaching completion. The selected contractor and the AMI technology that we selected have performed very well. And the business drivers related to the AMI metering system were achieved. So all in all, quite a good report is what I expect you'll hear. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Joel, who's going to walk us through the results of the POC.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ben. Next slide. Ben's going to be running my slides for me. So as you may recall, during the implementation planning phase of the project, we went through a process of identifying where we want to do a POC, and we broke POC, or proof of concept, up into two distinct areas. The first one was the Warm Springs area, and the second one was the area straddling Fremont and Newark. The Warm Springs area we selected because of it's in the hills, the properties are larger, more dispersed, and the propagation or cellular coverage in this case, would be tested. So that's why we selected the Warm Springs. The POC area 2 was a good combination of small meters, large meters, residential and commercial and industrial customers. So it had a really good cross section of the rest of the population. And so for these reasons, we selected these two areas. The different colors you see here represent full meter reading books. So really each color represents a day of a meter reading those meters. So we wanted to make sure as we progress through this project that the district is gaining efficiencies in meter reading. So we're making sure we saturate and install all the meters within the books that are identified. So there was about 3,300 meters that were included in the total POC. Ben, next slide. So just to the other element to set these projects up are a solution of this magnitude and complexity requires the integration of new systems with the district's existing systems. So here on this slide, you'll see the EBPP, which is the online payment provider, Kayenta, and CityWorks. These are all existing district systems that manage billing, payments, and works management. The new systems are represented in, or the systems that will be impacted by this project are represented in gray. If they have a plus sign, a green plus sign, that means that they are added to the overall system architecture. If they have a red minus symbol by it, means we will eventually move away from that system. The lines that connect the new systems with the existing systems, the ones in green, these are the interfaces that we have developed during the startup of the phase. So the ones on the right here, you see there's the MIS, or meter installation system, and this Badger's subcontractor PMI has a sophisticated system that manages both the work that's going on in the field as well as the inventory. So we have done an extensive development of an interface from those systems into Kayenta. There was 2 of them, and during the startup and prior to POC starting, we validated, we planned, developed, tested those interfaces, and deemed them successful to setting up the new meters in the Kayenta system. Down below in the middle of your screen is the Badger Beacon Advanced Analytics System, or AMA. Now this is a critical system. This is where all of the data gets collected and stored. So you'll see 3A, B, and E. This interface allows for billing to occur. So when Kayenta requires a bill, they would request a bill not from the Itron system, but from a Badger Beacon system. So we wanted to make sure that this system, this interface, was also planned, developed, and tested prior to POC. All 3 of those interfaces were successful and have allowed us to move forward. There is still more work to do on the interfacing. So there's a maintenance 3C. There's a maintenance interface that is currently being worked on, and there is also the SEW, or customer portal, which will be implemented in by Q2 of 2022. We made the decision, as Ben had said, to prioritize interfaces so that we can make some good progress on the POC, ensure that the district's billing team can bill, and then we will now switch and start to focus on the other interfaces listed here. Ben, next slide. So as I said, PMI's meter installation system is a web-based portal. It allows not only the Badger and the contractor to access, but it also allows the district to access this, all of the installation information. This system is designed and it's integrated with CIS. It has a number of quality controls that are required. This system is designed such that the information gets received, the information that on where they have to install meters gets received. It has what's called workflow that ensures that the process is consistent, and then all the way to the field, the installers enter into a handheld ensuring that there is no paper throughout the process. What this system allows, it allows for remote problem solving. So if there is a question about a certain aspect of an installation, anyone is able to go in and investigate it on their own. Next slide. So I had mentioned the workflow, and as you can see, this is a sample of the workflow that is being captured, and you'll see that there's digital imagery that is being captured along the way. So not only are we capturing the key data that's required to set up these meters properly, but we also have a sequence of events that ensures the installer is following a set procedure and is collecting the correct information. If there was ever an issue, we would be able to go back to these pictures and validate that things were installed correctly at a certain point in time. This is a really invaluable tool, and PMI and Badger have done a great job of implementing this tool into the field. We also validate that. You'll see at the bottom middle, there is a door knocker. That door knocker represents the installer dropping off a door knocker to every resident. So we know that the resident is actually getting some of that public outreach materials that have been developed for the project to encourage the project, to encourage some of the tools, and promote water conservation. Lastly, at the bottom right, you'll see that this is a screenshot of the Beacon software, Badger's Beacon software. So at the end of the day, by the next day, the district and Badger and PMI are able to jump in and validate that the meter and the cellular radio transmitter are successfully reading into the system. So there's a real end-to-end connection that ensures a very high quality of installation. Next. So what this table represents is, as I said earlier, the POC had about 3,300 meters that Badger and PMI had to receive and go out and perform work at. Currently, they have installed meters at 86%, over 86% of the sites provided. With these types of projects, they're complicated. You don't always know what you're getting into. So there are some elements that require backup or follow-up. So there's been about 2.9% of the accounts that require some district involvement to resolve. Both the district, EMA, and Badger and PMI are working together to resolve those. There is about 10% that PMI is continuing to follow up on. So although the standard installation is pretty simple and pretty straightforward, there are some challenging situations out there that Ben has alluded to. So there's sometimes you go and there's a meter pit that has an irregular sized lid, which may prevent work from occurring. So there's a number of more difficult installations that PMI is working on, and those are scheduled to be done by around mid-July. Next slide. So now I'm just going to focus on those 2,883 meters that have been installed to date. First of all, over 96% of these meters can get a billable read. So what a billable read is have I gotten a meter reading in the last 2 days? So that's very good. We're very happy that that percentage is getting a billable read. There is a few that still need investigation, and Badger is working with their cellular provider, and they're sort of doing some investigation in the field to resolve those. Now, a billable read is good. That's what you need to bill your customers. But a system of this nature and the specifications that we put out have a much higher bar. What we actually ask for is 30 days of hourly readings. So obviously, in order to validate that that is happening, you have to wait 30 days. So you'll see in the read success rate statistics, the first line is installs past the 30-day mark. So there's about 1,573 that are past the 30-day mark. And what you'll notice is that 97.8% of them are acceptable. They are above the 98.5% that we require the contractor to achieve. What this is telling us is the system as designed is operating within the specifications that we asked for, and we're going to get a lot of very good data as expected from this system. So this is a really key metric that shows that the system is working as planned, which is great. Now, there's also a number of meters that are not at, there's a few meters that are not at the acceptable rate. So there's about 34 that have not yet made this or reached this level. So there's a few reasons for that. One, there are some where we're trying to manage through the irregular lids, but there's also some challenges in the hills area. So as we said, we sort of selected that place intentionally, knowing we would challenge the technology. So given only 2% are not being read, we're very, very confident that after Badger is able to work with the cellular provider, and as Badger starts to move into the other areas, that we're very confident that this system will continue to be well over the 97.8%. Next slide. So as Badger is an expert in these types of deployments, so Badger and PMI have created an interface between their two systems, and this was not requested. This was something that they have done in order to ensure they have a good visual on how the radio transmitters are performing. The dark green are those meters that have met our RSR. So you can see a considerable number of dark green. The light green or yellow, I'm a little bit colorblind, so bear with me. They are, so those are ones that are still waiting. So given the slide previous, we're very confident that those are going to turn a dark green in the near future as they move past that 30-day mark. Now there are a few small, red ones, and you can see sort of areas that those red ones are showing up, which really falls back down to there's some areas that the coverage needs some tweaking. Next slide. So what we've talked about to date about testing is really making sure the IUAT, or initial user acceptance testing, is really to make sure that we're able to install the meters and bill for water. And there's a big check mark there. We're able to do that now, but we bought this system for much more than that. So during the implementation planning phase, we identified a bunch of business drivers that were important to the district. So you'll see in the middle of your screen, there's a reference to those business drivers. Working with Badger and the district, we have started to build out what's called use cases, or final FUAT use cases in Beacon. So you can see we've now connected the desired business drivers to the functionality within the system. The importance that we originally put to that type of business driver and functionality is listed as essential or important. And Badger has started to run these use cases and validate that they're achieving what we set out. And we still have some work to do to review and validate it as a secondary check, but we're very confident that the final UAT is going to show that the solution that has been selected and implemented are achieving the business drivers that we set out at the very beginning. Now, there will be some additional business drivers related to the customer portal. If you do recall, there is a whole element of customer engagement that we still haven't done, but we will do that once we start to, once SCW has been implemented. Next slide. So what I wanted to do is, it's easy to talk about a business driver. What I wanted to do is start to show you some of those business drivers in action. So the one that we talk a lot about is continuous leak. So a continuous leak is basically when a device within your private water system is locked on and it's allowing water to pass. So what it does from a data behavior perspective is on the left here, you see that there is consumption in every hourly bucket. And then there is some certain times of the day where there's larger consumption, which is normal. So we had Mr. Stevenson. He had his meter installed as part of the POC, and a few days after he did that, he turned his irrigation system on. And so what you see is there was a leak on his irrigation system. So we were able to, so there was an alarm that were triggered in Badger, in the Badger beacon system. And we were able to work with Mr. Stevenson and investigate what the problem was. He found the leak and it was resolved within his system. And so on the right, you see the next day, the impact it's had on consumption. So, would you want it to happen to Mr. Stevenson? I don't know, but I think you can start to understand that there's people within your population may or may not be able to afford some of that unexpected high bills, and this is what will contribute to it.
Hey, Mr. Carty, Mr. Paul Sethi.
Yes, sir.
Since Mr. Stevenson is our new incoming general manager, we're going to make him the poster boy for this program.
Well, Director Sethi, I definitely encouraged the team here to include my data here. I was a very early adopter pre-POC, just to test out the installation process and all the moving parts. And it just so happens that was days before my irrigation system was activated seasonally, and found through this process that Joel described a leaking irrigation valve. And there's no way I would have ever seen or found that without this data. So this is kind of a testament to the power of this system and what it can really do. So I'm happy to be a guinea pig and a poster child.
I may become a fellow poster boy board member after this is installed on my home. So you may have some company.
Yeah, I think your customer service team, you can envision where the customer has an irrigation system, turns it on, has a leak, and then gets this large bill. And all the customer service up until now, all customer service could do was, well, it went through your water meter. I'm not sure how. Now you can actually pinpoint to the day, and then someone can say, wait a minute, I turned my irrigation system on at that date. And all of a sudden you're really providing a service to the customers you serve. Next slide. So that was the example. Now let's look at it as from a macro level. So of the meters that have been installed, 9% of them showed this type of leak. So that was 446 leak alerts as of June 14th. And the next point is 199 of them have been resolved. That's because the district's team is starting to use the system the way it was intended, which is the alerts are happening, they're getting on the phone, they're making phone calls so that people can investigate or change their behavior. And now customers are very appreciative of the steps the district is taking. And it really starts to, this is what enhanced customer service really looks like. So next slide, I've got some other examples of how the system is working for the district's customers. So this one's a tamper. This is there's been 8 tampers that have been identified. What a tamper is it's either a problem with the water meter, a problem with the wiring connecting to the radio, or someone is doing something to the meter. So what this allows the district to do is before a water bill is even attempted to be produced, they're able to get out, send their maintenance team out, investigate and resolve the problem prior to it impacting the billing process. So this is a really good way of proactively looking at your system and resolving some of these things. Sometimes this might be an actual tamper where someone is manipulating or doing something to the water meter. In other cases, this might just be an animal has eaten through the wire, or there was construction that ripped that lid off. There's a number of things that would trigger this, but at least now the district has the ability to identify it and get out there immediately. Next slide. So the beacon system also has the ability to track backflow flags. So backflow flags, it's actually a reverse consumption flag. Now, this is perfectly normal in a water system. Your water system, there's only the commercial or large that have backflow preventers. Most of the residential do not. So what happens is, let's say a hydrant gets turned on, and that draws a bunch of water. But actually, there is a small bit of water that will come back through the system. But so for the residential, we're not really worried about these types of backflow events. But you do have a backflow testing and monitoring program. It's tested every year. Your team does it. So what we're going to do is correlate the data from these backflow events to the places that do have backflow preventers on, so that now you don't have to wait a year in order to go out and test and realize it's not working. This will tell you before that, and you can get the property owner to address this risk to your water system much quicker. Next slide. So this one is a maximum flow exceeds. So this is really what this is where someone is using a lot of water over a very short period of time. So this could be, a service break where the service break is underground, they don't see it, and this is leading to a significant water bill. Now, instead of waiting for a very large bill and then credits, negotiating with the customer to provide a credit if it was a break, now we can realize it's happening. make phone calls so that the customer can then investigate and resolve the problem before these bills are issued. So this is another good example where you'll see that peak. Obviously, there might be a reason for it. They may have filled a pool, and that might be okay. But it could also be a problem with the system, and that customer will be very appreciative of that phone call. Next slide. So the POC, I'm sure you'll agree, after sort of the data I've shown you, has been extremely successful. The project team has worked really well together, and the results are showing very, very positive. Now, has the POC identified some challenges? Absolutely, which is sort of the design of the POC, is we want to know what the issues are so that we can address them before we go to full deployment. So there has been some supply chain impacts. You're likely aware of the global shortage on chips. So this we have not been immune to that problem, but Badger's done a good job of prioritizing shipments to the district in order to minimize the impact this has. There is some old meter box lid sizes and types that were unanticipated, and we're working with Badger to come up with solutions on the, as Ben had talked about, POC, we've got a plan, and we will work with Badger for what happens with these types of situations once we move into the larger project. We did identify, and this was a bit of a weird one, but we did identify a compatibility issue between competitors' products, which is the Neptune register and the Badger radio transmitter. We were able to work with both those manufacturers, understand the implication of the issue, and then get it resolved. There have been a few situations where the customer plumbing has been poor, and performing work on that service has led to some damage, but we've been working with our contractor and working with the customer to get those resolved. I have mentioned the Warm Springs network coverage, and Badger is doing a great job of investigating and resolving. And I mean, given we put that POC in a difficult area, and only 2% of them are showing problems, really indicate that as we move out of that more difficult area, we're going to see really good performance from the system. Lastly, on integrations, so the Kayenta integration was successful, but we did have to prioritize integrations to make sure that we had the right resources, the right skills, doing the design, development, and testing of the interfaces. So that one was a little unexpected, but we have a good plan moving forward. So I think at this point, go ahead.
Director Sethi, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
It might be good if you paused every once in a while to ask if there are questions. I have a very simple question for staff. Maybe Mr. Egger can answer. These new lids for the water meters, I really like the ACWD insignia that's on top of the lids. Do we know what the cost is of replacing all the lids for the installations we're planning on making? And I'm hoping that it will be with this kind of lid that is portrayed here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I have good news for you then. So the Badger proposal, the original proposal, did propose replacing all the lids with this style of lid for all our medium and small meter boxes. And so this is the lid that is going in. And of course, we did a survey prior to bidding when we were putting our bid documents together to estimate, to understand the different sizes and types of meter boxes out there, and put estimates together for the different quantities of the different sizes of lids the lid has to be an RF compatible lid. We do need to change those lids. So, but what we found in the POC is there's a couple of oddballs like this oval example right here. We didn't find any of those when we did our initial evaluation or our sample survey to put an estimate together. So, you know, where we had programmed in the original contract already includes a B9 size lid, new lid for this location. We now have to swap that out for an oval lid, and they do make oval lids, and Badger will provide us an oval RF compatible lid. And so that's what that work modification order was. This is one example. There's some other examples which would be harder to see probably with the naked eye, but they are slightly different dimensions or have a particular different rounded corner because they were made by a company 50 years ago who is now out of the business. But we've been able to source those lids. There are others out there that still need to be solved, but yeah, we were able, that work modification did make that update to include some more odd size lids.
Do you know what the estimated cost is on per lid at all?
Per lid, I don't have that breakdown right in front of me. I don't want to get it wrong,
Okay,
but it is in the contract, and we did have, you know, 84,500 lids in the original bid price, but we are now finding we just had missed a couple of extra sizes, oddball sizes.
yeah, maybe you can send me an email. I was just curious as to whether it's $1 a lid or $5 a lid, how much we're spending. And the last question is, I saw on your previous slides that we did quite a number of larger meter sizes, 1.5 inch, 2 inches and stuff like that. Do we use the same kind of lids on those meters, or is it something custom?
Right, yeah, we do have development standards and standard installations, and so certain meter sizes have a particular meter box size that's required to fit, you know, all the appurtenances and adapters in there. So yeah, we do have different sizes. I think through 2 inch is we'll end up with one of these plastic style lids that you sorry, composite style lids that you see here with the ACWD logo on them.
Right, and
some of those,
Ben, the vast majority of the boxes are going to end up with these composite lids with the ACWD logo, correct?
correct, yeah. There's some big meters out there that are in double door vaults and things like that.
Right.
Those won't, this solution won't work there.
So I hope the board likes the current logo.
It looks good. And thank you, Mr. Egger, for answering my questions, okay?
Cool. So I think with that,
Ben, before we
yeah.
continue, to see if there's any other questions. First, let me open it up to other directors.
President Akbari, I actually have a curiosity questions on the slide related to tempering. So on one of our committee meeting field trip, I had a chance to open up one of those boxes with the new meter. And I noticed that there's a wire attached to the meter cover. So how difficult is it for a regular customer opening up their own meter box to accidentally disconnect the wires?
Right, yeah. So it's certainly possible that that a curious homeowner customer may open that box, and if they really open it wide, I think the pigtail or the you know, the wiring on the meter and the wiring on the endpoint, I think it ends up at least 6 feet, if not a little more, closer to 9 feet in total. So you can really open that thing up and throw it to the side without putting any stress on that connector. But yes, it is certainly possible to break that connection. But the nice thing there, and I think what that slide did a good job of showing, is that we would know straight away And so
Right.
we're not waiting 60 days to come around and want to generate a bill. We would send someone out there probably the next day. That alert would come in, and so that work would and that's part of the integration that we're doing to automate some of that workflow there, that this type of alert comes in from the system and it automatically gets turned into a service order or into an issue for us to address.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that. The original intent was to see if we could make the homeowners aware that, you know, now there's a wire connected to the lid and they should be careful. But if it's 6 to 9 feet, you know, I think it's pretty difficult. Someone has to try really hard. The second question is, would it also trigger a temporary alert if the homeowner shut off the valve on the meter?
Shut off the valve? No, but there are certainly a number of other alerts. Like if the meter was removed by the homeowner, we would get an empty pipe alert. You know, if that meter is not full of water, then we'll know about that. Yeah, just shutting off the angle stop won't trigger an alert, but we would see no consumption at that location.
Okay. Right, because somebody's valve into the house was leaking, and there was almost a possibility of me actually go shut off the anchor stop valve. So I was just wondering, you know, what type of alarm you would trigger, and yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other directors have any questions or comments?
I have some questions.
Director Wade.
First of all, on the cost. On your initial slide, you showed about $47.5 million related to the POC contract getting it. But you also had made a mention that did not include other ancillary contracts as part of the AMI. Do we have a rough idea what the cumulative cost of the Kayenta and other contracts will be that are associated with this?
Yeah. So we didn't develop a slide to show the details of those other contracts. We certainly went through those details with the board when we did the award of those contracts. I can certainly report that to date, the Kayenta, we've paid for the integrations, we've paid Kayenta approximately 190,000 of the 270,000 for the integration work that they're doing. For EMA's work on the POC, particularly just to the POC, is in the order of 780,000 to date. And the SEW contract is a combination of implementation and software as a service. So there's both the sort of capital expenditure to set up the system and then ongoing. And so I'm sorry, I don't have the full total for the 10-year total for that SEW contract on hand. It was awarded in full, but the implementation piece, the total is 154,000. And those milestone, we haven't actually paid for the first milestone yet, although we have achieved it.
Okay, so the total cost is about $1 million in ancillary cost contracts that were not reflected in the numbers.
Right, and I just want to make sure that that's, I was talking about the POC numbers. If you want a comprehensive full list of numbers for the whole project, I'd have to put that table together for you just to do it.
It might be in the several $1 million range.
Well, I did also want to correct that the numbers that I showed for the Badger contracts, those aren't specific to the POC. That was the full contract amount for both for the full capital investment through the end of deployment, and that was the total for the 20 years of ongoing service.
We're just trying to get a rough idea. So we had 47 plus some additional contracts running around $50 million. I would throw that number out. Not necessarily accurate, but just a ballpark. We began this project at an estimate of $30 million. We have in our CIP $77 million because we're also costing in the relatively short lifespan of the project, being within having to replace it in the end. But even at $15 million, we're coming in at close to $600 per customer. I'm concerned when we say that there's a positive cost benefit for this, as I was concerned as well when we said there was a positive cost benefit to our conservation program. The cost benefit analysis here assumed a 5% conservation and said that was a positive. As we're going through our rate structure, we're finding that conservation is a net negative because of the revenues. We're looking at avoided costs. We didn't put in the loss of revenue. So it's $600, and we're going to borrow some of that, much of that money, so plus interest per customer. When this originally came up, I felt it was premature because the technology is rapidly advancing. Unfortunately, during this process, we went from positive displacement to ultrasonic for 65,000 of the meters. Those meter holders are going to see an increase in their water bill of about 5%, not a decrease. So it's $600 per customer plus a 5% increase in their water bill for the water they use. Our total avoided cost for lost waters had never exceeded $2,500 a year, for which we have a over $50 million partial solution. While there's some great examples of this, the actual dollar impact on the district has been extremely modest historically. There are obviously going to be some extraordinary administrative benefits, but they could have also, the financial benefits could have been changed by modifying our administrative and meter reading schedules. So this is proceeding, we're on track, but I'm concerned about a lack of institutional integrity when we try to argue that there's a positive cost benefit for the customer, and that many of the people now will have the ability at $600+ to be able to read their water consumption on their cell phone. Those two don't match. But if we accept the fact that this is a significant additional cost, and we're going forward to get a modernization, and I trust in a few years the technology will be such that we'll throw it out and start over again when we get around to the next round within probably 15, 20 years. So be it. But hopefully we can be straightforward in our approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wade. Any other comments from the board? If not, I do have one quick question. You briefly touched on the compatibility issues between Neptune and Badger. Can you just talk through what those compatibility issues were and how we resolved that?
Sure,
And
Joel, did you want to?
Yeah.
So I guess at the highest level, I'll kick it over to Joel in a second, but we have been installing Neptune meters for the last 5 years. That was our prior meter provider. And so those meters had a lot of life left in them. And so we'd planned just to do an upgrade, basically a register upgrade on those meters, not a full replacement. And so that meant doing a register retrofit on them. And so those new registers, I'll hand it over to Joel to talk about the compatibility of the old registers that we had been purchasing and the new registers and what we found there.
Sure. So thank you very much. So the industry, the water meter and AMI industry have basically two main protocols. And a protocol is basically the language that the register communicates to an exterior or a radio transmitter. So there's a Neptune protocol and there's a census protocol, and then there's subsets of each one of those. And those protocols get updated on a infrequent basis. So what we found was some of the protocols in the register was an older protocol on some of the older registers. So the Badger product had been approved on the new protocol, But they did not do the testing on the older protocol. So that was the issue we found. Fortunately, there was a very small number of them, and it was only specific to a certain range. So it didn't have a major impact on the project.
Were there any costs associated with that issue?
I don't believe there are. Ben?
Yeah, I think what we planned in the project was to replace all of these registers to do a register retrofit. But for those Neptune meters that we'd installed in the last 2 years or the last few years, we thought, hey, it should already be compatible. Let's just plug an endpoint into those ones. And so that's when we found out that some of those did not have the the compatible protocol. So there wasn't really a cost. We'd already built that price into the project, and we were basically trying to find a cost saving there. And so it turned out with some of those, depending on the vintage, the year of those Neptune registers, we did have to proceed with the register retrofit rather than just plugging it in.
Okay, thank you. Let me open it up now to members of the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment or ask a question at this point? I'm seeing no hands raised, nor am I seeing any questions in the chat. So I will turn it back to Ben and Joel.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find my unmute.
Yes,
President
Mr.
Akbar.
Yes.
May I make yes. Yes, I'm very intrigued by the examples given, and my question or comment is, this was a proof of concept, and therefore there was probably a lot of scrutiny being given to the data that was coming in from the POC participants. When this is fully deployed, if there is a leak, would the customers have to go and pull their data, or would the district proactively reach out to the customer and say, hey, we're seeing a pattern that you have a leak? And similar question with the full scale meter readings. Again, would those be something that the district would reach out to the customer, or is it up to the customer to pull their app?
Right. Yeah. So so the end game here is to get customers into a self-service mode. We want to have provide them with access to their data securely, so that with a package that has the intelligence and the algorithms built into it to be able to identify things for them, such as leaks, and let them know, hey, you have a leak here. Click here to have a look at that leak, and providing different notification opportunities, whether it's a push notification through an app, or they sign up for text messages or emails. That's kind of at their option. But yeah, what we are hoping to do here is have a self-service style implementation. And so right now we're kind of in a transition period where the beacon system, which is really a utility facing software system, is telling us there are leaks, but we don't yet have that customer portal implemented. So our customer service reps are reaching out to those customers that the system is identifying as there's a continuous use here and potential leak. And so we're kind of manually managing that process. Where we're looking to go is more of a self-service mode through that technology, through that customer portal technology. I have a feeling I forgot one of your questions. I'm sorry. Did I answer your question?
No, yeah, you did. No, because if your data is correct that 9% of your customers are likely to have a leak, once this is fully deployed, that's many thousands of people, and it's unreasonable to have district representatives call everybody. Yet that's if it's really true that there are that many leaky residences, that's a considerable amount of water, right, that's being wasted. And I'm just we're in the midst of a drought right now, and I think it's in the public interest to figure out how to get the customers to pay attention to their app or other indications if it's truly the case that 9% of the households have a significant leak. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nishimura. Are there any other members of the public who have a question or wish to make a comment? Hearing none, I will turn it back to staff.
Okay, thank you, President Akbari. So this is actually the final slide that Joel was planning to present on the deployment component. We wanted to shift gears slightly to our public outreach efforts that what we did there and what we learned to support the proof of concept. So with that, I'll kick it to the next slide and then turn it over to Mark, who's going to talk us through that topic.
All right, thank you, Ben. The member of the public has stolen some of my thunder, so I'll try and regain some of it here. Shireen Gonzalez and her public affairs team have created a quick video that will be posted in social media as well as the district's website. It gives customers visual information so they'll understand what they will see when their meter is being upgraded, and it provides written information that will be beneficial for customers to understand. So Ben, would you show the video?
Hopefully, Ron.
All right, thank you. The district has planned a strong public outreach effort from the inception of this project, and the board has also emphasized its importance throughout. We've had a very active public outreach program promoting both the AMI project, but also supporting our customers' conservation goals. We strive to go above and beyond to get the message out. Details of the project have been published to district customers on the district website, in a press release, newsletters, in social media, and targeted emails to a long list of individual and organizational stakeholders, locally and up to the state and national levels. Internally, we produced customer service scripts and access to frequently asked questions, which are also available on the district's website. These scripts are used by district staff and PMI staff to help customers understand the scope and goals of the project and how it will affect customers directly. The PMI phone number is advertised to customers, and district staff is available to respond to questions. The district hosted a community outreach meeting that was attended by some of the board members and 25 to 30 other attendees. Customers involved in the proof of concept received letters announcing the project start and included information about what to expect before, during, and after the installation. The goal is to offer enough information through these communication venues where their customer is comfortable with the planned work and how they will be affected. After the installation takes place, the installer leaves a door hanger which mentions the district's customer portal, My Smart Water Connect, which will be coming soon, and Ben will talk about that in a bit. The door hanger also includes a link to a survey customers can complete to let us know about their experience. There were not many customers who participated in the survey, only 11, and we interpret the low participation as an indication that after being exposed to the educational materials we discussed, the meter upgrade met customer expectations. But I would like to talk about the outreach improvements in a moment, but from those 11 participants, we can glean some information. Overall, the meter upgrade experience was positive, with 75% of respondents reporting that their overall meter upgrade experience was excellent. The respondents were split evenly between thinking AMI would help improve water use awareness and being unsure, providing an opportunity for more education on the topic. The customer portal will help us improve water use awareness. Of the respondents who attended the community meeting, 100% said the information provided and the meeting accessibility was excellent. Plus, every respondent found out about the meeting from the commencement letter. Half of respondents visited acwd.org/AMI to learn more about the project, with half of those respondents reporting that the content there was excellent. We received a poor comment, but that was based on the customer not having access to My Smart Water Connect yet. Customers are indicating that they have a thirst for more information. In the graphics on the website, we shared what the installers would look like, what they would wear, and the project logo so that they could be certain the installer was associated with the project and authorized to do the work. Installers are carrying authorization letters that can be shown to customers in case that is helpful. These letters are translated into 14 languages so that we are providing accessibility to the authorization letter among all of the languages the district expects the installer may encounter. As you saw in the video, the installers follow COVID guidelines, so they wear masks. The installer hotline is published for customers to call with questions or special requests, like setting up appointments, but sometimes customers do call the district with questions. One customer was initially hesitant about the upgrade, but after receiving additional information from district staff, agreed to the installation. And as Joel mentioned, as is expected, the project encountered meter box leaks, poor private and public plumbing, and I'm happy to report that our installation and customer service teams have done a fabulous job working with individual customers. No one likes receiving unexpected or bad news, but PMI is very customer focused in each situation. These locations they become involved with typically required additional time and coordination. We do have a number of these upgrades that are mid-process and incomplete at this time. So by the numbers, PMI has received 15 calls. The district staff has received 32 calls, and 15 customers submitted questions to the ACWD website or sent separate emails. We mentioned earlier that the AMI system reported 446 instances of continuous consumption, which are good indications of leaks. We said that 199 have been resolved, but since we're talking about customer interactions, I wanted to provide more detail to Joel's earlier comment about how that happened. District staff, led by Katrina Bates and Jacqueline Simon, called every customer that appears on the leak report, and they continue to call customers as they newly appear on the report to help them identify and resolve leaks, which is water literally going down the drain unused. When the customer portal is live, these alerts will go directly to the customer from the customer portal without district staff intervention. But eventually, at the time that the portal is launched, this leak alerting will become a customer self-service function. Next slide. When we planned the project, we were intentional in our desire to learn from the proof of concept and apply what we learned for deployment public outreach. These are some of the things that we are already doing to prepare for deployment. We need to promote the project and installation hotline every chance we get to help decrease customer service call volume at the district and at PMI. For example, we'll be including it at in the commencement letter this time when we didn't previously. In the POC, we focused on physical letters to customers. In deployment, we'll add emails when we have a customer's email address for additional communication, especially since we're asking more from customers for deployment. For example, trimming bushes, turning off water-dependent devices such as a recirculation pump. Some customers will receive multiple notifications as we try to reach every customer at least once. We've improved language in the door hangers and the customer letters we'll use for the deployment phase. We've added PMI's installer hotline for appointments and encouragement for customers to be aware of any appliances or devices that should be turned off while the installation takes place. In addition to benefiting customers, hints like this can also reduce damage claims. Now that there's some buzz around the project, we'll work to increase visibility to the community meeting invitations and increase attendance. We need to promote the survey, and we're considering postcards to augment participation. We want to understand the customer experience in a timely manner and implement changes if necessary. Ben?
Sorry, I'd left myself on mute again. Okay, thanks, Mark. Right, so just to summarize this topic of the proof of concept, I just wanted to leave us with a couple of final thoughts here. By all accounts, the POC objectives were achieved. I think we proved to ourselves that certainly the selected Badger AMI solution meets our expectations. And so staff plan to complete the remaining POC tasks and then continue with issuance of notice to proceed number 2, commencing the full deployment phase. As I mentioned close to the opening there, the contract is awarded in full through the full deployment. So there is actually no action required from the board to proceed with that NTP number 2 issuance.
And Ben, before we move on to next steps and so forth, it's probably another good opportunity to see if there are any questions or comments from the board or from the public, given that we've talked about, public input and our experience through the POC and outreach and so forth. Just probably a good point to pause.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Let me first open it up to members of the board. Are there any questions or comments?
I have some comments here.
Yes.
Director Sethi. So thank you for the complete and very, very insightful presentation. I'm glad the proof of concept is going forward as we expected. Good work to the entire team, both of our internal staff and our consultants as well, and customer service too. I do have a couple of comments for when we make a presentation to the public in a regular monthly public board meeting, when you provide an update or a progress report down in the future in Q1 or Q2 of the next fiscal year. And this goes back to what Director Weed was talking about in terms of what our return on investment is. Now, staff, both engineering and finance working together, operations, they came up with a very detailed return on investment and an internal rate of return for the water district. And I think it behooves us to represent that from time to time to showcase to our customers and our ratepayers exactly what it is that is producing a really robust return for the district over a 20-year cycle here. And so I would appreciate seeing that down the road. And I think that the second part of what I wanted to comment on is it's not clearly observable, but we also need to point it out when we provide the return on investment that what are the state grants that we have received? How are we using the state revolving fund for loan assistance at half the interest rate of the marketplace to deploy what we're doing? That's also part of our return on investment and a presentation to the community that we're not entirely relying on ratepayer funds to finance all of this, that we are getting assistance from the state of California. And the last thing I will mention, which I've mentioned before, is I hope we continue to apply for other grants from the state of California, like the California Energy Commission, which has given other districts, a pot of money for reducing the number of truck rolls, for meter reading and things like that. And so if you calculate the number of miles of truck rolls per year over a 20-year period of time, here's the carbon reduction that we are contributing to the state of California. And so that's the last thing that I would like us to emphasize to our customers. And I haven't seen it in any of the preliminary presentation materials, but this carbon reduction, along with our planned solar installations and everything else, is a very important component of putting in AMI. So thank you very much.
John Weed. I also would encourage a revisit to the cost benefit analysis. And I think it'll be informative to the opportunity to do a critical analysis of what we're actually proposed. At the time, I felt the numbers were bogus, and that opinion hasn't changed. But I would ask that as we go into this implementation of the program, that we consider either public information or a specific program to look at the integrity of the service line from the meter to the facility, the home or business, where you merely turn off the cutoff valve. In many cases, the homeowner might learn where their cutoff valve is. Second, we're doing an inventory of the types of service lines. And once we have that information, where it shows that we have galvanized pipe, and we know it's been in there for more than 10 years, the integrity is suspect. So we may seriously wish to do a more proactive review based on the type of pipe that we have on the service line in order to reduce major leaks. So overall, this is a positive step for the district, but it comes at a cost. And that's my concern was that we were not being as straightforward as we might on what the actual cost was. Thank you.
Director Akbari, if I may. So I do have a comment, and I think this is more for staff after full deployment. I know the ultimate goal is for this to be a self-service and our customers will get notification of leaks through the app. But we do have a substantial community of seniors that perhaps are not as app savvy. Have we considered doing some sort of hybrid notification for those cases? And I would also assume that our customers would have to actually sign up for an account through the app in order to get this type of notification. Are we planning additional outreach to notify our customers that they need to sign up? You don't have the answer since full deployment is still a while from now, but just think about these concepts, please.
Yeah, there certainly will be some outreach. Good question. There'll be some outreach related to the customer portal and getting some additional sign up. We're in a very fortunate position that we have very healthy sign up for our EBPP program. And so those will just be automatically transferred over to the new customer portal, which will continue to provide that service in addition to this AMI functionality that will now be available. But yes, that doesn't capture everyone. And so that's a very good point. We'll take that on board.
Thank you.
Director Gunther here, kind of in line with previous comments. I feel that the leak aspect, the leak identification aspect of this is invaluable. I think the leak numbers are higher than we suspect. Curious, we found a few. I don't think we're targeting towards the age of the home yet. It's just too little. Based on, very unscientific evidence, both neighbors and myself have had leaks. It's very unscientific, but it's pretty high level when you consider that AMI would have found them. I think one thing for customer service will be, and we can take some of these cases perhaps and identify them as how they were found and how it shows up so a customer can understand it. And I strongly consider the staff consider how do we go forward just with the seniors or those people who may not be as app friendly, that we have some form of an outreach to the customer. I think there's some great water savings in here. And not just that, but I also think there's some property savings here for our own customers. The leaks get bad and it only gets worse. And so I look forward to it. I look forward to getting my meter. I don't have it yet. And yes, I'm looking forward very much so for that van to pull up. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I concur with a lot of what's been said so far. I'm happy with where we're at so far, and so a big thank you to Ben and the team internally and to our consultants as well, because this is a big undertaking for the district and for our customers, and I think so far we've met our objectives, so I'm quite pleased by that. Let me now open it up to members of the public for questions and comments. Seeing no hands raised in the Zoom app, and I don't see anything in the chat. I'll wait just a couple more seconds. If not, I'll turn it back to staff. And I think we have next steps to go over still.
Right, yeah. Thank you, Director Akbari, and thanks for those comments and input. I just have a few slides to close out our presentation, and so these are all focused on next steps and what we'll be up to over the next coming months. So NTP for the full deployment. So there are some requirements before we can issue that NTP. Certainly, as you heard from Joel, achievement of that RSR performance criteria. That's a very rigorous performance test that we've built into our contract. So we'd be looking to achieve this milestone in its entirety for the POC meter population before we move on to the full deployment. We'd be looking to complete our Kayenta to Beacon integration, which allows for some of those maintenance alerts. Basically allows us to automate maintenance alerts and facilitates our ownership of the AMI system so that we can respond and start to implement some of those efficiencies for district staff. As Joel also mentioned, that we're not immune to what's going on in the rest of the world. And so our project did experience some inventory issues through the pandemic. to do with national resin shortages or global chip shortages. Who could have truly guessed that? But certainly what we'd be looking to do is have a 6-week inventory buffer of those main equipment types, so that we have a smooth deployment through full deployment and have a bit of a cushion there, so that there's no impacts to the installation work, but also to our billing cycles through delays in inventory. And we've developed and implemented, I hope what you heard was a public outreach that for the program for this project that's beyond anything I've seen for our other CIP construction efforts. However, as Mark mentioned, there's room for improvement, and some updates certainly are underway as we head into full deployment, but that will really be a continual process for the duration of the project. So next steps for the AMI project itself, complete those NTP number 2, the notice to proceed number 2 requirements, and then issue NTP 2. And so to commence that full deployment, we need to sync up our customer communication schedule. So things like making sure that we get the outreach in place before we turn up to replace someone's meter. So synchronizing our next town hall event and mailings and things like that with our full deployment schedule. And then complete the development of the customer portal. Of course, we're all really looking forward to that. The My Smart Water Connect go live. And so a little more detail on that just before I turn it back. So quick status update. We have completed the document of understanding for the customer portal. And so in that, it includes things like the configuration settings of the software and how that they will implement that software to make sure it meets the features and functions that we need to accomplish our business drivers and to make sure it's well received by our customers. The integrations between the customer portal and the various systems are ongoing. And so we're looking to enter into testing of that system. That'll be our own internal testing. So developing use cases and doing some testing internally towards the end of Q1 of next fiscal year, 21-22. And then we'd be looking for the go live launch of that customer portal toward the end of this year, so Q2 of next fiscal year. And in between, I would like to come back to the board and provide a quick preview and a demo of what that customer portal looks like, what our customers are going to receive before we actually go live with that. So we want to get some testing under our belt, but it would be nice to show you what we've come up with there, so you know what that customer experience will be like. And so that date hasn't yet been set, but that's my parting thought, that that's probably the next time you'll see me, is hopefully with the customer portal in hand, so we can take a look at that together. Okay, so with that, Director Akbari, President Akbari, I'll kick it back to you for any final questions. That completes our presentation for tonight.
Well, thank you, Ben, and Joel and Mark for an excellent presentation tonight. Let me see if there are any remaining questions or comments from either members of the board or members of the public. I'm hearing none. I believe, Ben, let me know if that concludes this item and if we should move on.
Correct. Yeah, that concludes our presentation. Thanks. Thank you very much for your time and input, and looking forward to the next steps.
Great. Thank you. Okay. With that, we will move on to item 5.1. Before we enter that item, let me first ask if there are any members of the board who wish to take a break at this point. Otherwise, we can continue with a couple more items before adjourning for a break.
I would like to take a break, Director
Absolutely.
Seth.
Yeah. I have 5:52 right now. Why don't we take about an 8-minute break and return at 6 p.m. on the dot?
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you don't mind pulling up the agenda for us.
Andy, this is Paul Sethi. I want to pay you some compliments for scheduling this board workshop and meeting on a day when we don't have a Giants game. Thank you.
Okay, it is 6:04 p.m. and the board is reconvening. We are picking up with item 5.1. Now, before we jump into the item, I believe there's a Director Gunther, who will likely recuse himself from this item.
That is correct, President Akbari. I live way too close to this project in a conflict zone, literally down the street from me. So I'll be reclusing myself from this as I have throughout this item's history.
Okay.
With that, I will depart the room if Andy could give me a door. Don't see a door. Ah, there's the door. I will see everybody later.
Okay.
Director Gunther should be in his breakout room now.
Perfect. Thank you, Andy. Okay, jumping into item 5.1, authorization of change order for phase 1 of the Alvarado Niles Pipeline Seismic Improvement Project construction. And I will turn it over to the general manager.
Yeah, and I will ask Mr. Stevenson to briefly cover this item.
Sure, and I can keep this very brief. This is change order number 6 for the Alvarado Niles Pipeline Seismic Improvement Project. This change order deals with the additional effort and costs related to having to deal with about 1,800 feet of reinforced concrete slab that was discovered under the roadway and portion of the phase 1 pipeline alignment. And so that had to be saw cut and demolished and removed and disposed of. And it also includes a change in the asphalt paving materials that were required by the city of Union City after the contract had been awarded. And so staff's recommendation is by motion approve change order number 6 in the amount of $268,041.75, which includes a time extension of 3 calendar days to Garney Pacific Incorporated for the Alvarado Niles Pipeline Seismic Improvement Project, job number 21192, and I'd be happy to address any questions.
Are there any questions from members of the board?
I have one question.
Director Sethi.
Are any of these costs being reimbursed from the city of Union City?
These costs are not being reimbursed. We do, as the board knows, we do have another agreement and arrangement with the city of Union City that provides for a fair amount of cost reimbursement related to paving, but these costs are not included in that. This is not work that has been requested by Union City as part of that cooperative agreement. So these are costs associated with the project directly.
Thank you.
Question I have. Kind of remarkable that there was not lack of knowledge of the construction of the road for that length. Did we rely on Union City's records when we did the contract, or are there no records on the part of Union City? And might that be something to add to the GIS?
Yeah, we've added it to our records now, that's for sure. We relied on both our records and other records that we were able to get from other entities, including the city of Union City. You know, when we installed those parts of the pipeline in the past, either that concrete slab wasn't there or nobody noted it. So yeah, it did come as a bit of a surprise. And so it's in our records now, though.
Thank you for those questions. Are there any members of the public who wish to ask a question or make a comment on this item? Hearing none and seeing no hands raised in the Zoom app, is there a motion on the table?
I'll move the staff recommendation for approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Sure. Directors Weed,
Aye.
Gunther, Huang,
Aye.
Seppi,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye.
I don't think I heard Director Weed.
He attest he said in the affirmative he voted.
Perfect. If we can now recall Director Gunther, we can continue with the agenda.
Okay, President Akbari, Director Gunther will be here shortly.
Well, hopefully I'm not back too soon.
Nope, just in time. We've completed item 5.1 and we'll move on to item 6, General Manager's Report. And I believe we do have a report.
Yes, thank you, President Akbari. I'm going to ask our Manager of Operations and Maintenance, Kurt Renz, to kind of provide the board with some supplemental information on that main break that we had on Japala Court in Fremont and respond to any questions that board members might have. So, Mr. Renz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Shaver, President Akbari, members of the board. Like Mr. Shaver said, I just want to give you a quick summary and overview of what happened on Tuesday, June 22nd, and answer any questions you or the public might have. Mr. Shaver did a good job of providing information during the event. It turned out to be a pretty significant leak. It was reported in the afternoon of Tuesday, the 22nd. Luckily, staff was able to respond quickly and identify the problem and address it as quickly as we could, but it was an 8-inch AC main that had I guess you'd call it a catastrophic failure, had a large chunk of the pipe separate from the pipe, which released a large amount of water. And although we did shut down the pipeline, actually within a very short period of time, it did do quite a bit of damage in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, the topography in that area, if you're familiar, this is near Durham and Mission, just to the west of Durham Road, is kind of unique where the many homes are actually below the grade of the street. So once the water got over the sidewalk, it basically flowed through the property, through the homes, and then on to the next property behind, and so forth, kind of cascading through the neighborhood. So we did have quite a bit of damage to some residential homes. I believe there's about 7 homes that were damaged. 2 were actually red tagged by the city. That was due to the water level in the homes rising to around the electrical outlets. So they had to shut off power to those homes, which made it pretty much unlivable until they could get that corrected. Staff responded immediately. We did a contract with a restoration company that was on site probably within an hour or so of the event and started assisting the residents in that neighborhood with recovery. Our staff went door to door and talked to the residents to ensure that they knew procedures for who the contacts were to make claims. The 2 homes where people had to relocate temporarily, we ensured they had a place to stay. Did everything we could to assist the neighbors. It was very fortunate the neighbors were very understanding. When I was out there, nobody was overly upset. Obviously, it was a very frustrating and upsetting event, but it was addressed quickly. The water was turned off to about 10 homes for a few hours, and then we were able to repair that and get that back in service rather quickly. But the recovery of some of the homes will probably take some time, and then we'll be having claims, I'm sure, following up in the future. So with that, I'll just leave it and then answer any questions you might have about the events.
Are there any questions or comments? If not, I will just say I appreciate staff jumping on this very quickly and keeping the entire board updated on the events as they're transpiring. That was very helpful for us.
I have a couple of comments to make.
Director Sepp, yeah.
Yes, so I communicated with Mr. Stevenson yesterday. I went out to survey the neighborhood at lunchtime yesterday. And what I communicated to Mr. Stevenson is I noted that there were, aside from the work that we just recently did to stop the flooding from this 8-inch main, there were 9 other patches in the neighborhood for lateral repairs. And the streets are really cracked, uneven. I walked the center of the streets and really uneven surfacing. And you can tell that there is, this is Warm Springs. These are old springs that are underground. The city of Fremont approved the development of these properties in Indian Hills, knowing full well that there were latent springs there and that the water table is very high in these areas. And I find it very disturbing that that we've had so many repairs in this neighborhood, lateral repairs, and I really think we need to stay on top of things like this where we have similar history in other neighborhoods. And I'm also really kind of surprised at the city of Fremont for not resurfacing both Japala Drive and Japala Court, which seem greatly affected by the underground swelling of water. And I will note this too. Mr. Shaver helped me with this and Michelle Myers about 4 years ago. I held a community meeting in that neighborhood, not exactly in that neighborhood, but very close by, with residents who were complaining about spring water swelling under their homes, humidifying their homes. Walls of their homes are absorbing moisture. They are leaning over as a result of the moisture. Flooring in homes is becoming uneven as a result of these underground springs that are in the neighborhoods. And there's a lot of damage to homes. There was an attorney, we had about 50 people at that meeting, and there was an attorney who was considering filing a lawsuit against the city of Fremont because they didn't notify the original purchasers of the homes or notify residents, subsequent owners of homes and their CC&Rs when they were acquiring property. So this is a native problem to all of the Indian Hills development area. And I think that the Water District needs to really recheck all the roads, the lateral repair history in these neighborhoods. And it's not surprising to me that we had an 8-inch main that broke there. And we're also right on the earthquake fault there. And so there's a lot of earth movement in the area as well. And I think that is contributing to all the lateral repairs. So I just wanted to note that and make other board members and staff aware of what's going on in those neighborhoods. Thank you.
To follow on Director Sethi's comment, has the staff considered some type of a geotechnical review of the area to determine if this is a systemic issue or a one-off?
Well, I can tell you that as part of our main renewal prioritization model, we do look at geotechnical issues that where we have the information available. So certainly proximity to the fault, areas of known landslides and earth movement and so forth, they're mapped, and we use the data in GIS, plug that into our prioritization model. But I will say that the main that failed here and the mains around it are between the 65th and 75th percentile in the model. So they're not shown as high priority mains. This is these kinds of incidents are reasons to go back and double check and ensure that if there is additional information we can leverage in our prioritization, or if there are changes to our weighting or prioritization approach, that we want to do that. And so we'll be revisiting those issues and to see whether or not additional information might be appropriate to add. At this point, this is 2 days following the event. At this point, we've not begun a process of any sort of additional geotechnical investigation, but we are considering this area and trying to determine whether or not there's more we need to do.
Lastly, I will note that if you drive from Mission Boulevard down Grimmer, just before you reach the freeway underpass, there's a stop sign there. And the city of Fremont continuously has to repair the road there because of water that is swelling above, the surface of the street. And it's breaking apart the road, and they are continually having to fill potholes that result there. Even during our drought period right now, they're having to fill potholes that are created by the subsurface water that's percolating up. And this is all from the old, our natural warm springs. Those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Any other directors wish to make a comment?
Based on Director Sethi's comment, I think it might be interesting if, I don't know if there are that many locations where this type of topography and homes exist, but that might be something we may want to check on, particularly in this area, that maybe we should move the priority up if we're in a situation where a main break could affect property in a manner that it wouldn't normally do in another location. We have a little history now. Granted, we're only a couple days away. I don't expect it today, but it might be something interesting to look at. That's what I got to say. And great job for the staff, by the way. It's an incredible week.
Thank you for those comments. Any members of the public wish to make a comment on this item? Hearing none. Are there any other GM reports?
No, President Akbari, that's it.
Great. With that, we'll move on to item 7, directors' comments and/or agenda item requests. Are there any directors who wish to make a comment or request an agenda item?
I actually do have an agenda item request.
Director Horn.
President Akbari, if I may. I'd like to request that the potential purchase of N3 Ranch be included as an agenda item for the July 12th board meeting. The potential purchase of N3 Ranch listed for $68 million come with insignificant water quality and water quantity improvements for the district. And in my opinion, has significant future rate impacts and legal and financial liabilities. The board has been discussing this issue in closed session for over a year. It is time to update our customers on the board's intent regarding N3 Ranch and for the board to provide our customers with a justification rationales for spending many millions of dollars of customer monies on a piece of property many miles away from ACWD with very limited water supply and water quality improvements. Instead of spending a similar amount of customer funds on projects that would significantly improve future water quality and water supply reliability, such as the construction of a groundwater treatment plant that would remove emerging chemicals, such as PFAS, or decrease water hardness in our northern service area. ACWD has committed to be transparent in our decision-making process. For the sake of transparency and to inform our customers of the potential purchase of a property with significant future liability, in my opinion, and rate impacts, I'm asking for my fellow board members' support to include N3 Ranch on the July 12th board meeting agenda. Thank you.
Director Wong?
Yes.
I believe the board meeting is scheduled on July 8th.
8th.
Is it 8th? I thought I just looked it up in my district calendar. Okay, 8th. I will amend my request for the 8th. Sorry. Ooh, looking at the wrong calendar. Yes, I'll amend the request for including it on the July 8th board meeting, please.
Any board member can request something to put on the agenda, and in this case, I do support it. But I would also like to have the opportunity to demonstrate the extraordinary water supply potential of the Arroyo del Val, which is which the bulk of the N3 Ranch covers, particularly immediately upstream of Del Val Reservoir.
This is Director Sethi. I will support bringing this forward to the board as well, but I will say, and I don't want to get into any arguments here, I seriously object to revealing intent of the board on discussions that have been held in private session, in closed door session. We are in real property negotiations where the public doesn't know right now whether we are consummating a deal with a coalition of partners or whether the district has any private intentions. And I seriously object to revealing what is done in closed door session by both you and your husband
Director Sethi.
in a public board meeting. If this request was made otherwise, I would not have the objection. But I will support putting it on the agenda if necessary, just to clear the air, since it's been put forward right now in an uncustomary way and in a very disharmonious way to your fellow board members.
I welcome the discussion. That's why I suggested the agenda item. And second, as far as our district's intention, I would like to remind the director that as a part of the financial workshop, there's actually a $5 million plan that is specifically identified for ACWD to participate in the coalition. So I will have to say my husband, Mr. Canan, was the one who actually brought to my attention that the realtor's website was updated, that the property is actually in pending sale. So I am sorry, Director Sethi, if you believe that the reference to the fact that the property is for sale, which is public information on the website, or the fact that the district planned money to join the coalition, which is in our open financial workshop, is considered a disclosure or closed door discussion, then I think you, me, and council need to have a discussion about what constitutes a closed door discussion.
Director Wong, when you and your husband conjecture, posit on things that have been in private discussion, intuit as to what the board's intent is, those are things that are confidential. And I'm going to register my complaint with the League of Women Voters and some other public organizations, because I find this seriously objectionable.
And I welcome that discussion with League of Women Voters in terms of transparency, but I say this is not the appropriate forum for it. I would ask Mr. Miyagi to opine in terms of where we should be going right now and where's the appropriate forum for this discussion, please.
Yes, so we are under director's comments and agenda item requests, and there's been a request made and it's been supported by the directors, and I believe your board rules provide that that's what's needed to put it on the agenda.
Thank you.
We should limit the discussion to whether something should be on the agenda or not. So I think that that's been done, and I would recommend we move on to the next director comment or agenda item request.
Thank you, Mr. Miyagi.
Okay. Are there any other items on under director's comments and or agenda item requests? Hearing none, let me just clarify. I believe I'll ask the general manager. I think we did have at least 2 directors who have agreed to the request to add this to the July 8th board meeting. I want to make sure that that's been noted.
That's correct, President Akbari. I'm looking at your board rules now, and section 8.1.1 states that a board member may request that an item be considered on a future agenda, and with the support of another board member, the item will be added to the future agenda. So I think we've received our direction by at least 2 directors, and we will add an item to the July 8th board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. Hearing no more directors' comments under agenda item requests, we will move on to item 8.1.
A very quick comment. We
Yes.
have a committee meeting on water ops, which Director Wong and I sit on. It's been our practice to have a preview of many of the agenda items at a committee before they go on to the general calendar. And if that could be one of the items on the agenda for the Water Ops Committee, I think that may help address some of the creative framework for the full board discussion.
So I'm looking at the board calendar now, and the next operations and water quality meeting is scheduled for July 7th, I believe.
I think 6.
6th. Yeah.
6th. Are you sure?
It's on the version of the calendar that I'm looking at. Yeah. It's Tuesday.
Been moved to Tuesdays.
Before the meeting, so that'd be, we'll give staff 48 hours to rewrite the staff report. Thank you.
Okay, I stand corrected, July 6th. So we will place an agenda item on that committee meeting as well.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. Unless there are any other director's comments, I'm going to close item 7. And we'll move on to item 8.1, and I'll read us out into closed session. Pursuant to California Government Code, Section 54956.8, conference with real property negotiators. Property under consideration is the N3 Cattle Company, consisting of 131 parcels and approximately 50,535 acres in Alameda County, Santa Clara County, San Joaquin County, and Stanislaus County. Assessors' parcel numbers were furnished by the owners as representative and are attached to this agenda. The agency negotiators are Robert Shaver and Ed Stevenson. The negotiating parties are the N3 Cattle Company, LLC, Wren Jr., and Wren Jr. Trust. Under negotiation are the price and terms of payment. And with that, I will ask our district secretary to move us into closed session, please.
Sure, President Akbari, I have it all set up, so you guys should be receiving a request right now.
Great. It is 9:30 p.m. and the board has reconvened into open session. We've concluded item 8.1 pursuant to California Government Code, Section 54956.8, conference with real property negotiators. Property under consideration is the N3 Cattle Company, consisting of 131 parcels and approximately 50,535 acres in Alameda County, Santa Clara County, San Joaquin County, and Stanislaus County. Assessors' parcel numbers were furnished by the owners as representative and are attached to the agenda. The agency negotiators are Robert Shaver and Ed Stevenson. The negotiating parties are the N3 Cattle Company, LLC, Wren Jr. and Wren Jr. Trust. And under negotiation is a price and terms of payment, and direction has been provided to the agency negotiators. I believe we're going to be returning to item 7 because there was an additional director's comment.
Okay. We had a discussion about possibly having an item related to N3 at the committee meeting of water ops on July 6th. I believe that would not be necessary.
Okay.
And Director Wong is the other member of that committee.
And I definitely concur for not, that is no longer necessary. Thank you.
Right. So the open session item for the N3 will just occur at the July 8th board meeting.
Great.
Okay.
Information. With that, I'll close item 7, and at 9:31 p.m. we can adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
For everyone.